Thank you. Oh, you know me. And okay, so welcome everyone. I want to say first and most important, it is a privilege to be able to be sharing this space with each and every one of you in person and also everyone that is joined us virtually. So thank you for joining us. And so with that, someone wants to clap. Well, we are glad to be here. One of the things that I want to say prior to even beginning and introducing ourselves to you is that when it comes to our family engagement, it is something that is a core belief of mine personally, and it is something that we're going to talk about in the next hour. There's no way we can share everything about family engagement in 1 hour. Our goal will be to give you some tools, and also hoping that moving forward, you guys can reach out to us if you have any questions or want further information about anything that we speak about today. And so you're welcome to do that. Always an advocate in the area of parent engagement. So thank you for being here. Okay, thank you. So my name is Maria Bordanaro. I am the Deputy Superintendent of Human Resources and Student Services for the Oakley Union Elementary School District. Oh, she's got the clap. Well, thank you. And with that said, I just want to share I've been in education for the past 28 plus years. And I started off my career in education as an instructional paraprofessional at a middle school. And from there, I have had the privilege of serving our communities as an instructional para support staff, as an adult education teacher, as a parent engagement specialist at a K-12 school district. And also, I've had the privilege of teaching and also moving from teaching to coach, TOSA, and then moved into student services, working with our special education department, and also now moving into our, as a deputy superintendent in our district. So with that said, I'm going to turn the microphone over to my friend and colleague.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you. My name is Erin Roberts, and I work at the Contra Costa County Office of Education. And prior to that, I have served in roles as a classroom teacher, a TOSA, a site principal, a co-administrator, and some work at the district office and administration. And one of the roles that I play right now is a coordinator of ELD and ELA and literacy. And Maria and I have the honor of partnering together to be able to support Oakley School District with a literacy grant, and the literacy grant centers on students that are struggling to read and or have disabilities or dyslexia. And so one of the goals of the grant, there are 7 priorities across the state, is to be able to engage families with this work, because we know the work that we're doing in our classrooms can also be very well supported at home, and sometimes we need to think outside of the box to be able to engage all of our families. So like Maria shared, family engagement is a passion. It's a passion of ours. We do believe that, it sits differently with different spaces in terms of your district, your school, your organization. So our message today is to kind of take and reflect and think about what you can bring back to be able to implement in where you are and who you serve for things. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Maria.
I just want to add, as we move forward with our conversation, is that, one, I'm going to challenge each and every one of us to think about the role we serve in right now and what it is that we do to support parent engagement, right? But more than that, parent engagement is not something that happens as, hey, I'm the principal at a school site, I'm the one in charge of parent engagement. Or, hey, I'm the teacher in the classroom, I'm in charge of parent engagement. Parent engagement lives, and it's the responsibility of each and every one of us who get to serve our kids. And so with that said, keep that in mind as we go through this conversation with you. Okay. So if you can take something out to write, and those of you joining us virtually, you can use the chat box so that you can embed this information on there. I want you to really reflect. Oh, thank you. Look at me. I want to get right to what it is that we want to talk about. Okay, our goals for today, working together. We're going to go through our vision and purpose for family engagement. You're going to have time to reflect on that, which is about what we're going to do in a couple seconds here. And we're going to share a little bit about the systematic family and community engagement, a special project that exists with the Oakley School District, in which we've been able to use to continue moving parent engagement forward. And talking about our literacy grant with our County Office of Education and providing you with some resources as well. And there's no way that in 1 hour we're going to share every aspect of our journey. Just letting you know that, okay? So this is what I was getting ready to ask you to do. If you can take something out, a writing utensil and your paper, and those of you joining us virtually, at this point, if you take 50 seconds. How's that, Miss Erin? 50 seconds. And in 50 seconds, I want you to think about what is my vision and my purpose when it comes to family and community engagement. My vision and my purpose for you as an individual.
And for our audience members at home, we're going to have you do the same thing. As soon as you're done writing, we're going to do a brief share out. So you're going to use the chat if you're joining us virtually.
I see most are still writing. Okay. Okay. All right. You're going to come back to that page because you're going to continue to build on this. So, does anyone want to share what it is something that you wrote? Yes.
I said to provide education and resources to our parent community to help bridge the gap between our special ed parent population and the district, and to create a partnership and build trust.
Beautifully said. Okay. Anyone else wants to share?
Sure. I say to equip and engage family and community to support our students.
Equipped and engage. Support. Thank you. Nice.
Mine was specific to the deaf and hard of hearing population.
Okay.
And that 90% of children who are deaf are born to families who are hearing. And so families are not ready to take on and learn sign language as a primary means. And that deafness doesn't cause language delays, but language deprivation causes language delays.
So language deprivation.
So my ultimate vision and purpose for family and community engagement is that there would be more awareness at the early stage of ASL benefiting deaf children and hard of hearing children, because we already identified that baby sign language is effective for hearing babies, but there's this double standard that it's somehow not effective for deaf babies, and that's just, so the whole community engagement family, that's like my vision, that families would know that as some, I don't know, posters, something, that sign language is a language, and it's a tool that can be taught to teach English and reading, and English and reading should be used as in the written form. That the much less focus on articulation, because articulation is not language. And so if we're focusing on being able to be a speaking person, because that's the standard, that's the norm, we're missing out on aspects of this child.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
Basically, eradicate autism.
Yes. Hey, awareness, education, engagement, making sure that everyone sees the value and that it's an asset and how a child can be provided with all those supports and be part of their environment and everything else, right?
Right.
Beautiful. You're going to make it happen. You shared with us what you're doing today. You're going to make it happen.
And I just learned so much just from that. I learned a lot.
What?
And just what you said, I learned so much.
Oh.
Yes, I really appreciate what you said.
See? Beautiful.
So I want to empower families to advocate for their kids in education and for them to empower their kids to advocate for themselves.
So empowerment. Advocate, to be able to advocate. Okay. Anyone else? Is that good? Okay. We're like, we're not used to the microphone. I'm not used to the microphone. Okay. All right. Thank you. As you share that, as you reflected on that, the next question for you is this. What you wrote, is that connected to your why, your personal why? Why do you get up in the morning and do what you do? Why are you dedicated to doing what you do? You're obviously present today for this workshop, right? You're obviously here at this conference and gaining tools and spending time with others that have the same visions or, that have goals like we do. So is this connected to your why? Is what you wrote connected to, this is why I do what I do?
Yes.
Yes.
My
Yes.
husband is deaf.
That's connected to you.
And
Kid-
he grew up where he was basically, he says, I spent my entire time learning to communicate in a hearing world, and now it's hearing people's job to come communicate with me and understand who I am. And, like, it's one thing that he can be articulate and he can speak really well, but people don't realize that he still struggles to understand them because maybe they have masks for one. Maybe you can't see your lips if you have a mask, or you have lacy lips, or you have a beard. None of us do that, but, or you have an accent. But the communication is two ways, and by him learning to speak as a deaf person and learning, he's learning how to communicate with. So we all understand him, but no one ever considers, does he understand me?
Great questions. And when it comes to family engagement, you think about that, okay? Think about, do we understand our community and our parents? Do we truly understand what it is that we need to be doing to engage them? That's another question that we will be touching upon.
And I think about kind of what you shared in developing that sense of belonging and how that goes hand in hand with inclusion. And I think a lot of times your example of, not being able to hear and then lacking communication, it can also relate back to some of our families that may be hard of hearing, that may be of second language, right? And how we are meeting those needs with that communication lens for things. So when you think about that why, are we really trying to engage all in how we're doing that two-way communication like you shared, whether it's a second language, whether it's ASL, and there's a number of other, ways to be able to think about how we're meeting people where they are and really creating a sense of belonging and voice in our work.
Thank you. So for this next activity, you need your phone. Phones, yes. Technology. So if you can take your phone out and scan.
and it's going to ask you the question. And for our listeners that are tuning in online, you can scan that on the screen in the QR code. But the question is, what are your core beliefs centering around family and community engagement? And this is just a side note that we're using Mentimeter. So if you haven't used Mentimeter before, it's a very quick, easy way to be able to gather feedback from your audience or group that you're either trying to present to or build capacity with to be able to engage them. So ideally, this is the question. And the reason why this is important is that a lot of times when we are leading work or we're working with others, we bring our true selves to who we are, and we bring our core values and our beliefs. And so we want to be able to engage those core beliefs in the work that we're doing with our families and community, as well as working to develop those partnerships. So as you have scanned that QR code, and you do not have to put in all words, you can just put in one or two. It's up to you. And then once you press enter, those will all come up onto the screen to be able to get a shared vision of what our core values are. And I know our online friends at home, you may not be able to see the the word cloud that will come up. It will, yeah. And if you're online and you want to enter it into the chat, you sure can. So here's some of the words that we see. We see growth mindset, we see love. Trust is a little bit bigger, which means it was entered multiple times. So developing a sense of trust with our community and our families. All families, so again, we're being inclusive. We're ensuring that all families' voices are being heard. Empowerment, learning from each other, empower, children, support, partner. Is there anything else anybody wants to add to the chat or in our room here today that maybe might not be reflected in the core value? Fantastic. Thank you.
Just want to add one thing. Oh, there it is. I just saw it. Really like the word belonging. So in whatever role we serve our community in, if you just keep that in the forefront, how do I show up to support any of our community members to feel that they belong here, that they belong here? What does that look like? Whether it's making sure that there's a translator if it's a second language, whether it's greeting our families every time that you see any family member, and how you show up. Just think about that. Just one thing that you can do to help support that culture of belonging for your community. So, is there something that comes to mind? And if it does, wherever you're taking notes, I would encourage you to write down, what can I do right now that I know tomorrow, and whatever day you're going to show up to your organization, say, okay, this is one thing I can do to make sure that I provide a sense of belonging for every community member.
And one of the examples that I can give is that at one of the schools I was working at, families had a very difficult time finding the office and the main entry point to get into the school to be able to sign in. So they might be coming for IEPs or meetings with the teacher, and they would walk around the perimeter. And so based on that feedback, it was really important that not only did we identify where that office was, but it was also in other languages to be able to ensure that everybody could find that.
In addition to that, recently in our district in Oakley, one of the things that we gathered was a list of all languages spoken in our district. So then what we did is order a welcome sign with all the words welcome in every language represented in our district. Okay, you would think, wow, what, is that a huge deal? What does that really do? So I can tell you this: there's a teacher who shared how their spouse had come to the school and they saw their language on the welcome sign. Yeah, that's a spouse to one of our teachers, and he commented on, wow, I've never seen my language, a welcome sign at a school site in my language. And so that is not a parent at that school, that's a spouse to one of our teachers. So does it make a difference? Absolutely. I am from Mexico. Every time I see bienvenidos on a sign, I always feel like, oh, they're acknowledging me. They see me. So just think of the message that sends, okay? When we talk sign language, how can we make sure that that's captured as well? So just a thought, something very, I think, oh, that's a simple thing to do, right? And how can that help support that sense of belonging? Again, engagement.
All right, we're going to start to share with you just one journey and one story with Oakley School District, and then I'll explain a little bit more about the partnership. Before we go on, are there any questions that anybody has right now? Are we meeting needs? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Fantastic question.
Someone online asked if they could have access to the slides.
Yeah, we can share the slide deck right after. Is that okay? Great. Okay, so Maria, I'm going to turn it over to you to begin to tell the story of the journey.
So we don't have, but I'm a talker. So here was my thing. I was like, oh, 1 hour, okay, short. Okay, so I'm going to share about family engagement, parent community engagement in Oakley, specifically related to a parent community liaison project that we started, and how we started and where we are, okay? As I share this with you, there might be something that I share with you that will say, oh, I can do that. I can gather that information. Oh, I know where to go to get that, and how you can use that to help you support you in this journey in your organization, okay? So, Oakley School District, who are we? The first thing was, who do we serve? So do you know yourself and your organization who you serve? What subgroups exist? What needs exist? Do you know your community? So in Oakley, we have 7 elementary schools and 2 middle schools, okay? The breakdown of our schools, we're Title I in all 8 of our schools, except with the exception of 1, okay? The majority of our student population or family population are Hispanic Latinos. That's the largest population that we serve. Okay. Within our student population, I just capture our multilingual percentage of students that are second language or bilingual, multilingual students. And so the number 1 language is Spanish. The Spanish language, those are our number 1 bilingual students, multilingual students, okay? So, why is that important? So for you and your organization, you ask yourself, okay, who do I serve? Do I know my community? Start with, gather your data, right? Because that will help with those conversations, okay? After doing that, about 9 years ago, I had the privilege of stepping into an assistant superintendent of student services position with Oakley School District from a school site as a principal. So I moved into this position. And so one of the things that I discovered within the first month in that position was by being at a school site, showing up for a parent meeting. And when I showed up to this parent meeting, there was 4 parents present. And this is the site that had the largest number of special education programs in our district. We had lots of self-contained programs. Our preschool early intervention programs were housed there. And when I showed up, I meet the 4 parents. We started talking. One of the parents says, Ms. Bordanaro, there's so many parents, but there's only 4 of us here. And the topic that day was going to be about the special education department, our services, how, just the system itself. I was introducing myself to them as a community. And so through that conversation, we sat at the table and we had this long conversation about what barriers existed, how could we support the parent engagement aspect, especially for our special, students with special needs. And from that conversation, I showed up to my district office and had a conversation with my superintendent and deputy superintendent. And I thought, we have a huge gap of services for our students with special needs, families of second language. Not only that, we also have a gap on how we communicate with our community. So as I engaged in this conversation, I learned that during IEP meetings, there was no one translating some of those IEP meetings. And okay, I'm like, oh. So start learning how we did what we did. How do we go about doing what we do? So at that point, immediately, I was like, I know exactly what we need. We need a parent community liaison, and that person is going to help support. They need to be bilingual, Spanish speaking. This is a community we're serving. And so developed a job description, moved forward, created this 3-hour position for this, a 4-hour position for this specific school. And we had that going within the next couple of months. And the most beautiful thing was this person we hired was a parent from our community, one of the parents that was present for that meeting. Conversation with her was, she's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, no parents are coming. And I said, well, here's what you do. You call the parents, you stand outside, you invite them. Each time you host a gathering, you bring one more family. You go to the special ed classrooms, you wait, you meet the parents as they're coming. You become a bridge between the home and our school. You become that person in the front office. You speak Spanish, you meet every parent that walks through that door. And the things that our parents need is what we are going to provide. So they show up. There's a bill that I don't understand. The bill, it's in English. I can't, I'm not sure what to do. You talk with them and you help them. They come to you because whatever it is, because those are all barriers that exist for many of our families. So when we think we serve our students, we serve the family. So that was our beginning of this Parent Community Liaison project. I'm really proud to share that we have a parent community liaison at every single one of our 9 schools. And where we started to where we are today, from that one position, one school site, we started capturing input from our families. How does this impact you? Whenever we had IEPs, she was present. We started looking for bilingual translators. So I developed a Spanish bilingual test that I hosted. People, our employees would come, take this test. If they passed the test, and they became translators for IEPs, okay? And then started offering them trainings so that they could become those translators for IEPs and support our community, our family. All of this happened from, one, using the data. Who do we serve? Those conversations started to take place, and then our families started they realized, oh, my voice is something, my voice can be heard by this organization or district. And so by empowering one parent, we empower 2 parents, we empower 3 parents, and moving forward, we started offering classes for workshops for our families. How do you, understanding an IEP, okay, how do you go about reading a psych report? Speech services, what does that mean? Your child qualifies for this, that, or the other. So we started hosting these workshops for our families. Excuse me, oh, here goes Foggy. And so from there, one of the things that that happened was gathering all the data showed the need at that school. That's how we ended up hiring at the other schools, and then we are here today, okay? The part that I think is really important is that those conversations about what we need for our families happen with our families. They don't happen in isolation with just ourselves perceiving of what our families need. Because our perception is one, the reality is theirs. They are the ones that we're trying to engage with us. And so a lot of times we get lost in we're engaging our families. No, we need them to tell us what they need in order for them to become truly engaged and have a voice in the conversations that we're having about what we do for our community. And those can happen at any time, anywhere, in conversations one-on-one or in groups. In addition to that, The next piece that I think is really important through this journey is that every time, every conversation, others have seen the results of how this impacts our community. So when I say others, I'm talking our school board, I'm talking our site administrative team, I'm talking our special education team. So you have to get that buy-in, but is that your why? Like back to when you guys wrote your, hey, what's family engagement mean to me? And is that really connected to my why? Because it needs to be a core in order for you to really push this work of love. Because I like, it's work of love. Okay.
How did you get the funding to pay for the family liaisons at all the different sites?
So it was a bilingual position specifically to serve our EL population. So there was funding for that, and that's how we're funding our parent community liaisons across in Title I and the Title III. Yeah. So it just depends, again, our student population, what they need. Oh, really important, through that conversation, you guys know we all have an LCAP, right? We did everything to make sure my very first parent community liaison, you have to be part of those meetings. You have to bring those voices to that table. And she did. She came and she shared and she pushed for the need that she knew existed at her site, and she knew it existed across our district, so did I. So we brought that to that conversation, and that's how we became better and better equipped to address hey, where are we gonna pay for this? So those conversations are important. Thank you, good question.
So this started and was born as a result of ensuring parent voices were there during IEPs and things were understood. Also related back to the SST process and parent conferences, and really looking at events where voices were not heard because they weren't there. So really being able to look at when things were offered, how we were communicating some of those pieces out to ensure that there was equitable access for all of our families to attend that wanted to. So it started with that. Through COVID, a lot of the things for us for family and community engagement changed, and they went to a virtual online format. We were able to actually increase participation with that online format. It took time. Like all of these, I wish I could stand up here and say everything was perfect. It was not, right? It required revamping, identifying barriers, and then how do we move past some of those barriers for things? One of them was, just the sheer connection factor. How do we get, our families to connect in? And so we did a lot of work to be able to ensure that was possible. And then once it was, there was and it's still actually going, about an hour session on Wednesday mornings related to just social emotional support. And, it is run by one of a school psychologist who's bilingual. And I've got a video. I'll let you introduce that before I play that.
Wonderful, thank you. So Dr. Rivera is who you are going to meet virtually. Dr. Rivera, we contracted with him. I went out searching for a bilingual, someone that spoke Spanish, because we needed to make sure that this service was provided to our Spanish-speaking families. And so I reached out to organizations around our area. So there's a Care Parent Network organization in our area. The regional center was connected to Care Parent Network. And so through those connections, we were able to meet Dr. Rivera, who agreed to come and join us and provide some parent workshops. So he started at Oakley Elementary School with our very first parent community liaison. That's where, again, data to build wow, look, we started with 4 parents, now we have 30 plus parents, and they're coming to every meeting, and parents are showing up to their IEPs, and so all of that was captured, okay? Dr. Rivera has been providing an hour and a half of weekly social emotional support for our families. And this is hosted every single Wednesday morning, and decided that, if other parents want to join us from other districts, why would we say no? They're welcome to. And the topics that come from during his presentations come from our community. So it's not me saying, well, we're going to present about IEPs. No, it comes from our families who are the ones that are requesting those services and needs. Okay, so he's going to speak to us about his journey with us.
Saludos, my name is Hector Rivera Lopez. I am a clinical psychologist, and during the past 7 years, I have been collaborating and working with Oakley Unified School District. During that time, I had the honor to work with many wonderful people who have collaborated, developed many programs to address many of the challenges that the Latino community is presenting in our communities. Uh, Basically, I'm going to be talking about two main projects. One is doing presentation for parents at the different schools, and also the fathers group. One of the challenges that we present, we face in working with this community is how they can have access to participate more active in the school. And part of our goal is to give a voice to this community to share and to talk about what are the needs, what they need, and how we as professionals and partners support their goals and the areas that they need to improve, specifically working with the children. We have basically a program for parents that we make every Wednesday from 9:30 to 10:30, and we talk about different topics that the parents express some concerns and they want to talk about it. Also, we have a fathers group, a men's group, that we meet every Wednesday from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And this group of parents, fathers, have been meeting for the last 5 years. 3 years in person, and the last 2 years through Zoom or WebEx is the platform that we have been using. So basically, the challenge that we are facing is that many parents sometimes they don't have time to come to those meetings, but having virtual or Zoom, they learn how to become more active in the school system. I think basically this is what we have been doing. Is a challenge in the sense that many parents want to become more active, and we are providing them with a means to achieve that goal. Thank you. And it's very short what I have been telling you, but it's part of what those parents want to achieve by coming to these meetings. Thank you.
Okay, so you can see a lot of that is designed based on, what the need is, what the feedback from the parents is, and how do we support and nurture, what they're asking for. One of the pieces that we found that is really important to be able to do is to use the MTSS system to be able to weave family and community engagement into everything. So it's not just, related to your social emotional learning. It's not just related to literacy. It's not just related to your math or your behavior for things. And one of the pieces with the family and community engagement, if you're familiar with MTSS, is the family and community engagement that develops trusting partnerships and then community partnerships. So being able to think about how are you supporting everyone? How are you supporting in that tier 2? Just some specific outreach, like Maria said. Maybe it's you're standing at the door. Well, families are coming into something, to an event, to a classroom, to be able to have that outreach. Maybe you are showing them a different way to be able to communicate with you, because we know at the heart of everything, a lot of communication education comes down to removing those barriers to ensure that they can access information back into the school for things. So with the MTSS system, that's a nice way to be able to have your family and community engagement live. And there are some specific elements that are in place. If you're not familiar with the system of MTSS, that's a great next step and resource to be able to look at how to capture some of the family engagement pieces. Another great resource, and this has been work that we've been doing with the literacy grant, because right now that is our focus for family and community engagement, is the toolkit from the California Department of Education and also West Ed for things. And what this is, it's online, it's free. I went to, Staples, had it bound and printed and copied. And then what we're doing with our literacy grant is that with our administrators and with our subcommittee group for family and community engagement with Maria at the district, is being able to work through some of the different chapters and pieces. One of the things that we did this morning was at the heart of some of your mission and vision statement was to be able to think about on this matrix, how are you using family and community engagement? There's two critical components from this handbook, and we could probably each give them one. Yeah. And it talks about building trusting relationships, connecting it back to student learning. So when you're thinking about how are we including all, how are we specifically having outreach with some of our most at-risk students, whether they are identified as special education, whether they're identified because they're struggling, or need some further interventions for things. This is an example about how do we scaffold some of that support, and then are they meeting both of those elements for things? So during this, what I encourage you to think about is if you're hosting a literacy night, where does that fit on there? Is it just basic information for everybody, or are you going to go past that and have a little bit more outreach for families that may have a student that is not learning, like everybody else for things? How are you helping them to have that sense of belonging at your family events? How are you helping them to be able to tune in to think about, what it is that they can do specifically just for their child for things? So again, this is free, it's online, and it's a great way to be able to tie this into your system of MTSS through a scope and sequence pattern for that. Anything else you want to add with that?
So I think that one thing that I consistently hear from different members in our on our staff or in our community, in our district, actually not just our district, just in general, is, well, what can I do? Like, how can I make this happen? Like, what do I do? You start. That's why you start with one thing, and then you build up on that. So thinking about strategically, systematically, if you're sitting in an IEP, you're sitting in an IEP representing that student, your district, your organization, right? So what happens in those IEP meetings that can help me as an individual build that parent engagement component within the IEP system, within that process? And so if you think about that and you bring that forward to something that then you share out with the rest of your staff or the rest of your district, you start to build a system that focuses on supporting that parent engagement. So think about that, just that one piece, one thing I can do tomorrow, one thing I can embed and share out. So just thinking about it systematically will help to begin that process of putting things in place that are more systematic and can live past just, in that moment in time you can continue to build up on.
And in some of our just kind of thoughts about this is that equity factor. Family and community engagement, it's not siloed. It doesn't sit in just one space, right? It is woven inter and throughout our classrooms, our schools, districts. And then thinking about equity versus equality and how does that also align with family and community engagement. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And like Maria said, it's just maybe taking one small step, one small action to be able to spur, that larger change factor with things. We do have some time for questions, but before we get to that, what we wanted to share, and Maria, I'm going to give you that for a minute because I'm going to try to pull up some of the slides from our other event.
Okay. While she does that, and you take a minute, right? I mean, take a minute right now, and on whatever you're capturing your notes, take a minute and write. What is one thing right now? Just one thing I can do immediately. One thing I can put in place. One thing I can do from where I serve my community to support this work. You take a minute and write that. And I do want to hear what you might be able to take and implement right away. And those joining us virtually, same thing. One thing you can do. It doesn't work. Yeah, it's fine. Would anyone like to share out? Okay.
Currently, I am in the process of creating, I work closely with our CAC, our Community Advisory Committee. So basically, I take the needs of what the parents are requesting, and we do like a small presentation at the end of every CAC meeting based on what their feedback is and what they're looking for. And I'm currently creating like an assessment IEP process, visual, and kind of like going through like different the components of the IEP and how it all kind of connects as a big puzzle piece. But specifically what I can take away is, yes, that's great for all parents, but can we be a little bit more specific and divide it up into an elementary training, have that accessible for parents who are in that early stage, that early intervention process, versus, the transition process into secondary and post-secondary, into the adult ed program. So just kind of maybe looking at and fine-tuning it to meeting the needs of all parents, because they may look at this and say, okay, well, that's great, I've been through that, but now that my child is 17 years old, how can that look for them differently? So just being maybe making it a little bit more specific and dividing it up.
Kind of like a roadmap.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. And I love that idea. I want to just compliment and just say that is fantastic. Write it down as you go so that you have that to be able to live within the system of just your process with it, because I think that's going to be powerful as you kind of move that work forward. Thank you.
Sorry, can you summarize what she said? 'Cause
Sorry.
no, it's the math.
You know what? No, you're good. She's going to share again, because I think every time we articulate what it is we're focusing on, we get better and better and better.
The mic. Solving the problem. So I work closely with our CAC, our Community Advisory Committee, and I base my work off of what the parents need and what they're requesting and what resources and help that they need in. And one of the components, or one of the requests, was creating some kind of like visual roadmap from the assessment process for students with IEPs or who are being identified with a disability, and kind of how that flows into the development of an IEP, and creating kind of that resource for parents and presenting on it. But from here, kind of taking it a little bit more specific, and I guess meeting the needs of the parents in like that elementary early intervention process, because it looks very different to those who are the parents of a 17-year-old child about to graduate high school. What are the next steps? Just kind of making it a little bit more specific and tailoring it to the populations within the population, I guess, if that makes sense. So.
Thank you.
I actually have a question.
Are you?
Yes.
CACs that I just thought of as you were talking.
Yeah.
So when kids get to be in high school, well, middle school and then high school, they are supposed to take on some of that role of self-advocacy and advocating for themselves, especially in high school. And I know the CAC is for parents, but is there a way to involve the students in that? Because I really, personally, I want to see kids in high school be in charge of their own IEPs rather than parents, as much as they can. Yes, yes, and my son has done that since when he hit 6th grade, he was in charge of his IEP. Yeah, yeah, he did not like it at the beginning, but, you know, he got much more, he got many more services than he would have gotten if I were in charge, because everyone, administration was so impressed that he led the IEP that they were just willing to give him everything. Yeah. So I was wondering, because the CAC is for parents, but how are we involving the student voice in that? Yeah, and as they get to be in high school, they're going to have that autonomy of, this is my life, I get to decide what I want, and parents have to take a step back, which is hard.
And I commend you for that self-advocacy it's so important. And his voice to be the voice that everyone on that IEP heard, right? That's awesome.
And from my family, from my son, it actually started in kindergarten when we came up, the IEP team, including me, and the teachers, we came up with beautiful solutions. And he said, I'm not doing that. I thought, okay, then what are you going to do? Maybe you should be in charge.
His voice at the table. That's awesome. That is awesome.
And I think, and I agree with what Maria said, just commending you. I think when we think family and community engagement, it's very easy to see, you know, how our students can be involved. But Mom, you were also a huge part of that. And you had to have that sense of belonging and relationship back with the schools and that IEP team to be able to foster that within him and be able to have that team function to be able to support him in his goals. So, and that's at the heart of all of this, is how do we work all together to be able to serve each and every one of our students, knowing that at times they can self-advocate and at times they can't. But no matter what, we want them to feel a sense of belonging. We want them to feel valued. And we want to go back to how we started today with what that vision of family and community engagement is. Like you started, the empowerment, right? How do we empower? How do we build trust? Because if you don't have those, you couldn't do what you did. You wouldn't be able to move that work forward. And in turn, what we're doing is we're allowing students to be able to be their own best advocate. And that's ultimately what we want. So thank you.
And I'm going to tie that back to what you shared earlier about the awareness for our community, our parents or community awareness for our youngest babies that are just starting into, our system, right? And so to be able to provide that awareness, that will empower our families, but also it really will support a sense of belonging for our students when they first start in our programs, right? And so just want to point that out.
I always welcome at IEPs. I love I encourage the parents of the preschoolers. The parents always ask me, does my child need to be there? And we're going to be talking about him. It's really, I encourage them to bring him and, have toys and we'll have puzzles, because it also changes how people talk about that child if the child's in the room. And if that's not possible, like having a poster or like I've seen, we have a picture of the child. This is who we're talking about, because the administrator doesn't really know the child. It's just a number. And so this is who we're talking about. We're talking this person right here. And even having a little bio thing. I've also, in another district, I've adopted it, is, well, actually, I had I had a parent who brought a notebook to the IEP. She'd have her questions. And when she left, the administration, the people around the table are like, she always brings that notebook. And I applauded her later, like 1-to-1. I said, you know what? Never lose your notebook. Your notebook with your questions is power. It gets them to think. I'm like, so oftentimes I will say things very direct, not text it because I don't want a paper trail, kind of. But I like to empower them. Like, you know what, that is a really strong advocacy for your child. Having that notebook, because that notebook is a threat to all the administration there. And the one thing that I am going to be doing with the new group of parents, the teacher that was there before, she was doing on her own time, having weekly sign language tutorials. So she would do on Zoom, and they would meet on Zoom. And the parents are really, really friendly. They all have this relationship with this teacher who left. And she's a really wonderful teacher. She takes on way more than I would. I'm like, I love them, but I also love my husband, and I have a new puppy, and it takes a lot of energy. I'm like, I need, so, and I'm going back to school, and they all understand that. Like, the Zoom meeting, that was really nice, but, just having sign language videos or what the weekly, the words that you're working on this week, that would be nice to know what those are. I'm like, okay, I'm going to consistently commit to posting, just links with the videos or me making videos, but that they still have access. And it's not like a huge sign language class because that's overwhelming. But if this is the story we're working on, if you could watch with your child, practice some of the signs and little baby steps. So thank you.
Yeah. And you're meeting people where they are, right? You're meeting people where they are.
Meeting where they're at.
Yeah, meeting where they're at. All right, well, we are done with our time, so we want to thank you for joining us today. We look forward to any questions you may have if you want to reach out via email.
Just want to say thank you. And it's a privilege to share the space with all of you and have this conversation. So thank you for everything all of you are doing and for the commitment to our community. So thank you.